But for some reason, the department believed all students should learn the exact same way and the exact same time, demonstrating that no one in instruction knew the first thing about children. By Trish Mercer. Common Core education standards should be abolished in public education because it is developmentally inappropriate and it takes away from the value of education. Common Core is developmentally inappropriate because its expectations are far above student education levels and takes away the opportunity to successfully pass the objective. They expect first graders who barely know how to write to not only write, but write complete, full, thought-out sentences that are clear, easy to understand, and grasp the concept of whatever topic you throw at them. That's a little excessive, don't you think? The Oklahoma Academic Standards for English Language Arts state, students will write for varied purposes and audiences in all modes, using fully developed ideas, strong organization, well-chosen words, fluent sentences, and appropriate voice. How does a 6-year-old have any other voice but excitement or boredom or sadness? And how are they supposed to grasp that concept about a textbook? How are they supposed to figure out how to accurately communicate how a dog feels when its ball gets taken? They can't. It is impossible. They expect pre-K children to be able to communicate and empathize with characters in a book. How can you expect a 4-year-old to understand somebody else's emotions when they barely understand their own? Expectation is the root of all heartache. William Shakespeare said that, and he is so right. We all have, when we have an expectation set and we fall short of that expectation, it breaks our hearts. And it makes us feel failure. It's like breaking a promise to ourselves. And so these children are taught at a young age that failure is the only option. There is no success. You have the few that make it because they happen to just be brighter than the rest. But what about those low kids that have a really hard time understanding it? By the end of the year, they're still lost and pushed forward into the next concept. And they still haven't grasped the original because it is too difficult for them to master. Their brains are not there yet, and they expect them to figure it out. I feel like that's unfair. Common Core standards devalue education because they limit the success of students by expecting every student to reach the nearly impossible standards with small odds of success. A school that consistently fails to meet adequate yearly progress standards may not be able to access some grants and other forms of funding. You can find that on theclassroom.com in the article, How Standardized Testing Affects Your Students. Parents need to know. If a school continually fails to meet the testing standards, they lose their funding, they lose grants and necessary funds to provide their children with the opportunity to succeed. It takes away their ability to buy textbooks that are more up to date and has more information. It takes away from being able to purchase, equipment for the classroom that will make their learning easier. It takes away from, everything in the classroom. It takes away the supplies the teachers can buy, and because now they're all having to come up with it out of pocket because their district's not getting funded. So the poorest districts are usually the ones that have the lowest scores because they're at home. These kids are broke. They're dealing with abuse and neglect and all this other stuff at home, and they can't focus on their work. And they're already having to meet impossible standards, so why wouldn't they just give up? Therefore causing the school to lose funding, and then creating a bigger problem because now they don't have the materials they need to learn this impossible skill. Education is not a race with winners and losers. It's not a commodity to be bought and sold. Grace Lillowin said it, and she was right. Education is treated as if you don't make the cut, if your brain can't keep up, then you're not worth it. You're not worth it. That's what these kids are taught, is that they can't reach the impossible, therefore they are not worth it. And if by chance you do reach the impossible, then you're the brightest star in the school, and that's like measuring the tallest midget. Because if they go to a school that has all the funding, that they always push those grades and they get those grades, they have resources that make it easier. And everybody around them knows the same things. But these districts that are losing that money because they can't perform. They don't have any of those resources, so they're not set up for success. How can they expect Common Core to be successful when it is not practical? It just isn't. Common Core education standards should be abolished because they are developmentally inappropriate for children by creating unrealistic and unreasonable expectations. They take away the success of children, which is so important. You have to build the confidence of those kids. These standards devalue education and basing a school's funding needs on their test scores and state grades. As every school is graded on their students' test score performances. How is that fair? How is that fair? You don't always have the same batch of kids in every school. You can't compare them. And they expect these kids to figure it out. It's not okay to treat children's education as a bartering chip for money. They need to find a better, more fair system for it. And we need to encourage Common Core abolition in our public education. Thank you. Can't wait for you to see it my way.
Ooh. That